Hello and welcome to Good Show, the podcast helping you answer one of the most daunting questions in television. What am I watching next? I'm Brandon Sharp.
And I'm Anthony Mako.
And on this episode of Good Show, we are discussing Andor. Andor lives as a part of the Star Wars universe and is one of 4 live-action television series created specifically for Disney+. This story directly precedes the cinematically released movie Rogue One, which is a prequel to the original trilogy, and finds our title character, Cassian Andor, a thief turned rebel spy, at a time of great dysfunction and chaos for the cause of the Rebel Alliance against the Galactic Empire, a cause he is violently committed to. Andor was created as a limited series by Tony Gilroy of Bourne Identity fame for Disney Plus and aired for the first time in September of 2022. And with that, Anthony, let's talk Star Wars.
Let's talk Star Wars. Even though, okay, I have a question right off the bat, if that's all right. Limited,
of course it is.
Does limited series always mean there's not another one coming?
That's what I take it to mean.
I thought there was another season of this coming.
There could be, but limited series means don't hold your breath, I think.
Yeah.
I think they do that a lot to, I don't know, put people in a state of panic.
That is helpful, but also I mean, it changes how I view it. I really kind of, I ended up on this like, oh man, I'm kind of excited for another season.
Yeah. And I think there is probably a little more room in there. They could probably squeeze another season in, but yeah, I don't know that they will. I don't know.
I'll bring it back up when we get to like this sort of thing, but there's kind of a specific reason I would have really, really thought there was another season coming.
Yeah. So real quick, this is our second video recording.
Yeah.
Full episode video recording.
Back to hats. The romance is over. We're back to hats.
Hats. Yeah. We couldn't get the hair together tonight. And after watching that first video, I was like, daggone it, I drink a lot of water. And Brandon, you need some chapstick. And so tonight I got my, so it's partly the cold, I think. I'm going to blame a lot of it on the cold.
Yeah, sure.
Also, I was looking a little crusty, and I know my throat is a little scratchy. So tonight, hopefully I'm over the hump a little bit. I felt like I regressed this past week. I can't get over this. Can't kick this cold. But
sorry, man. I cleaned up my bedroom. This isn't my bedroom, but I cleaned up the bedroom.
Looks fantastic back there.
Tidied up a little bit.
Looks good. Anyway, all that to say, I feel very self-conscious. Yeah. Watching myself.
You can't pay attention. But also, I mean, if you felt like you drank a lot of water, you should have seen all the water drinking I cut to a close-up of me on.
Is that the truth?
I mean, a couple of them I did, only because I was like, he probably doesn't want to show people drinking water.
Well, I felt like I kept like eyeballing my water. It's like over here. I feel like I need to move like it right here. It's just like eyeballing it like, hey man, over there. The throat's scratchy. I don't know what to say.
That's all right. It's not a problem. I don't think the people like you to be hydrated. That's what they like. I'll tell you that.
I like being hydrated. I feel like right now I'm like, I need a drink of water.
Well, we were just talking about it. That's not fair.
So what grabbed you first about this? Is this another one I backed you into a corner over?
A little bit, but I did hear it only in the sense that it was your idea for sure. And you were the one that was kind of pushing it. But I will say you weren't the only one that was pushing it. The couple people I work with loved Andor. I'm going to bring it up a little bit later, but there was this theme I kept hearing about Andor, which I'd like to unpack with you in a little bit. And I'll preview it right now. I kept hearing how this is not like Star Wars, and that's the benefit of it. But as I was watching it, I was thinking, it's very much like Star Wars. I don't know what in the world you're talking about. But anyway, lots of people were talking about Andor, and I will agree that it's different than a lot of Star Wars content. But it certainly is still like Star Wars. But also, I don't need to be talked into liking Star Wars. I like Star Wars. I just always say that I don't like Star Wars like a Star Wars fanatic like Star Wars. Like, I'll admit it in a minute, but I'll admit it now. I have not seen Rogue One, so that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
But I do.
I don't think it's a problem a little bit because the story, like I'll have a couple of questions later on about that, which obviously I'll be taking by myself. Yeah. But I think it's definitely like a B-list Star Wars movie.
Right. But like, Star Wars fans have seen Rogue One. So
Mostly,
Yeah.
but a lot of them, anyway, a lot of them don't love it. For me, I watch every piece of Star Wars content there is.
Right.
Except for some of the animated stuff, which I'm definitely going to make my way around to because I've heard that stuff's awesome as well. But I was, I'll admit, not as excited about this series because it came on the heels of a couple of not great things. Mm-hmm. There was the Mandalorian series, which has 2 seasons. Both of those have been good. The second season was amazing. But after that came Boba Fett and Kenobi. I was so excited for Kenobi, and it didn't meet my expectations. I don't want to just come out and say it was bad, but it just was not as good as I hoped it would be. So I was a little hesitant about this. I didn't start it right away. A couple people recommended it. My friend Adam actually was the real driving force behind this. He loved it, and he's a big Disney Plus content consumer, and he was pushing, because he's got kids and they love the Marvel stuff, and so he was really pushing me to check this out, and I finally did, and I remembered I had a couple of false starts with this one because it starts slow. Mm-hmm. It really does. Yeah. I think it picks up towards the end of episode 3, but it really takes a bit to get in there. But once you kind of get over that hump, I was like extra hooked and just straight binged the rest of it. So it was, definitely a draw though with the Star Wars stuff. It's always on my radar. I'm always pretty interested in the different stories they could tell. I do feel like we are really cramming everything. Like there's this timeline, and it's kind of the Skywalker timeline, and it kind of begins with the prequel trilogy, the 2000s era, anyway, and then it kind of wraps up with the Disney trilogy, the one that came out with Rey and Kylo Ren.
Yes,
but we're cramming, we're filling all the gaps in right now. Disney Plus is with a lot of different series, and I don't feel like there's that much real estate.
Yeah,
but somehow, they're really filing all these pieces of IP in there, and some of them feel like there wasn't a story here. You know what I'm saying? It just feels like maybe this wasn't the direction we need to run with this. Mm-hmm. So this was a big surprise for me. Shock.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really have preconceived notions about it, negative preconceived notions, but I will say probably related to this, I had some false starts and never finished The Mandalorian. And I know you really like it. And I wouldn't say I don't like The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. It didn't grab me. And I've thought several times about why in the world didn't it grab me? I think to some extent, you go on for so long with a lot of masks on people, which it makes it very hard to connect to them. And so it's there's no human element to it for quite a while. That was really hard. And
that's a good point.
There were certain scenes that it felt slow to me. And I don't have a negative thing to say about The Mandalorian, except to say I never finished because it just didn't grab me. And I tried really hard because so many people talked about The Mandalorian. I did not at all have that problem with this. And even I had some odd subconscious excitement about hitting this show. I think Diego Luna has the X factor. He's what he does, I'd be interested in checking out, or for whatever reason. I just think he looks like an interesting character. And so some of the actors, but mainly him, we're really okay, well, I'm into this. That's great.
You should definitely check out Rogue One then.
Yeah. I mean, I especially now, I think I definitely will.
He's pretty good in that. Yeah. So this is definitely a premium show.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that is a given for Disney Plus content.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some very low budge items from Disney Plus.
Sure. Yes.
Things that should not have been created. I'm sorry.
Huh.
I'm going to say that now. Disney Plus has quite a few stinkers. some of the sitcom-y stuff. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the Marvel stuff they've done, but this has a premium look. They definitely spent money here.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely spent time building out a few of these new worlds, planets that we haven't been to yet.
Yes.
Some really, man, just some really great set pieces. And there's
a really interesting benefit to Star Wars, which is because it started a long time ago in a galaxy. Anyway,
I got it.
Sorry. Because it started so long ago with these effects that are not good, but they were good. Like they're really good in the beginning, but they're not good in the beginning. If you watch now, you're like, oh, that's very cheesy, but also that's what Star Wars looks like. You have that built in where you can make something really, really good, but it doesn't have to be amazing special effects, but still pretty cool special effects.
The funny thing is, that to me was the big draw about the prequels. Oh, we can finally see
right.
what some of these Jedi can really do at like peak Jedi era.
Right.
Because the technology wasn't available.
And it backfired.
In the 70s, and it backfired.
Yep.
And people longed for the nostalgia of the original trilogy.
Yep.
So it seems like we've balanced things out though a little bit. What have you about the Disney trilogy they created? But I think we're kind of finding a little bit of a sweet spot. So characters, you've mentioned Diego Luna, Cassian Andor.
Yep.
Really, is he the make or break character here, or
no? There's not one. I don't think there's one. He's probably the best, and that's fine. But I don't think there's one. I think there's a lot of really strong characters. I sort of really like Stellan Skarsgård, whatever he's in. Like I usually like him a lot, and he's sufficiently like, hopefully this isn't a spoiler. He's sufficiently like you're torn about him. He's like I'm not sure what to think about him, which is often what he is. He's like you're skeptical of him in just about everything, but you're skeptical of him in this. I'll bring this up now. One of the reasons that I thought maybe, well, I hope I'm not spoiling all this stuff, but I'll just take a shot at it. I'm
gonna go ahead and say real quick that I think the enough time has passed. Okay. So if we kind of skirt the outer rim a little bit, I think we're fine.
Okay. So Adria Arjona playing Bix. So she's not in a lot of it. It's just a function of the story they're telling. But she's one of the reasons I thought maybe there was going to be another season, because there's no evidence that this is actually a love interest, but there's teasing at a love interest, I think, throughout the show.
Yeah.
And because it's only teasing, I thought, well, we got to be advancing into that at some point. So that was one of the main reasons that I assumed that something was coming. But also the evil characters were really good, I thought, at being not so, like, you don't want full bore evil in a villain. I don't think. I think you want, like, I get more uncomfortable when it's like in this show, the villains are like almost like, I mean, I can't think of a way to say this. It's not going to make me sound bad, but whatever. Like nerd villains, like who are out for revenge because they were picked on. It seems like in fifth grade they got picked on a lot, and I don't think you should pick on fifth graders and what have you. Anyway, but like it seems like you're now you've gotten some power because you were picked on in fifth grade, and now you're sort of that. You haven't become cool all of a sudden. You're just still a nerd villain. Like, but you're really vindictive because of this pain that was caused in your life. And so that's like a couple of the main villains, the sort of cops, if you will, are very much like that. It's like, what did someone do to you that made you like this? And they're very, very good at that. So.
Yeah, Kyle Solera is the main one who you can tell is always trying to prove himself, gets kind of beat down by some of his bosses. He's the one that's really out for revenge.
Yeah.
I feel like with the Empire and kind of the officers you see, I think you can draw a lot of connections to like the Nazis.
And
you basically you want SS officers. You don't want all of them to be Hitler.
Yes,
right. You don't want to murder all of them yourself.
That's
it's
exactly.
Like
that's a really good.
If they were all Hitler, you wouldn't be able to pay attention because you'd be so angry. So like,
but you need some that are like some of Hitler's underlings needed a daddy so bad that they just did whatever he said. It's now getting weird because we're using a real life situation, but like I think that's how it feels in this show. Like, oh, if your dad would have shown you approval, you probably wouldn't be part of the evil empire.
Not a bad point. I will say a couple. Wanted to nail a couple people real quick. I loathe anytime I see Forrest Whitaker on screen.
Really?
Yeah. I can't stand him.
I don't think he's as good as some people think he is, but I don't loathe him. Why is that?
I think he was maybe good one time in his life.
Last King of Scotland.
Yeah. Yep. And especially he's in Rogue One.
Oh, okay.
And he almost single-handedly rode that train off the rails. His character, I don't even know how to explain it. I think it's a little bit character and a little bit acting. I'm going to say it's mostly acting, though. I think the way Forrest approaches this character of Saw Gerrera is just, I don't know. The raspy voice. I cannot watch it.
That's okay. That's fair.
Anyway, also, this may be a spoiler, but Andy Serkis makes an appearance, and
that's not a spoiler. I don't think, as long as you don't know what sort of appearance he makes.
Well, no, and I think it's like, he pops up and you're like, oh my gosh, Andy Serkis.
The thing is, you can't, unfortunately for him, he can't play anyone else. So
no. And he's got like almost main billing in this show. Yeah. So I think a lot of people know that he's in this. He steals the show for he's in a chunk of episodes and he's so good.
He's really, really good. The problem is it takes a long time for him not to be Schmeagol. Not Schmeagol, but Smeagol.
Schmear?
Yeah.
Are you sure? I don't see that anymore.
That's all I can see.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I watch it every year, so maybe that helps, but.
Yeah, but when you're watching Lord of the Rings, you don't see Andy Serkis.
I know, but that's how good he is at being Schmeagol.
I think you're adding an extra CH.
The Jewish Smeagol. Schmeagol.
Yeah, anyway.
Schmidja Smeagol.
He's so good. I think him, Cassian Andor, I think those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up because it's an interesting little pop out like that. I recognize him from. And also,
it's definitely more than a cameo, though.
It's not a cameo. It's not a cameo at all. I just think he's somebody you would recognize in a show full of a lot of people you wouldn't recognize. Also, I thought it was interesting that Ebon Mosk-Bachrach was in it. And I don't know the order of these things, but he's from The Bear, which we've talked about. And so all of a sudden, I recognize, it's just I recognize that.
It's funny how those things start happening.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Some of those shows that, maybe there's some unknowns, they're going to start getting tagged for some of these other things. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool though to see them get more work. So the story, this was a big deal for me because I feel like the show has 4 distinct chapters.
Yep. I can see that.
And they're super different. And I feel like not all of them are great. Not all of the chapters are great. Chapter 1 is not so I want to be fair. It does lay a lot of foundation. It is foundationally important. I think as far as keeping a viewer engaged, it is the weakest of the 4 chapters.
I agree with you, and I would have said that if you asked me during chapter 1, but at the end now, I recognize the importance of it, and I wouldn't value it any less. So you're exactly right about everything you're saying is what I'm trying to say. But at the time, I was like, slow start. But I do sort of like how the view opens up over the course of the show. The world opens up and also it feels very much, the whole show felt so much. I actually don't even know. Sorry. If would this be the first thing in the Star Wars universe? Would this be first?
Oh, no. This takes place after the prequels.
Okay. Sorry.
This
This
takes
is embarrassing
place-
of my Star Wars
it's
knowledge,
fine.
but
It's fine because there's probably some people thinking, or curious about that, and I
it
probably
felt
should have done
so
a better
much
job.
like the rebellion was launching.
Well,
I guess that makes sense.
No. Yeah, but
the
the prequel, there is no rebellion.
right.
The Republic is in place, which are the good people at that point.
Yes.
It becomes the Empire at the end of the prequel.
And then the Empire strikes back.
Absolutely. And so do the Jedis. But anyway, so the Republic has regional governors.
Uh-huh.
And there is some sense of democracy involved here. And you can kind of see democracy dying towards the end of the prequels. And it's just kind of it's like a slow, it becomes more totalitarian, more of a police regime state. And at the almost one of the first lines in A New Hope is the last of the regional governors have been disbanded or dismantled or whatever. And we are now a galactic empire.
Interesting.
And so right before this, you have Rogue One. And then right before that, you have Andor.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of been building up towards this big totalitarian regime, fascist state. And all of the what we know as the rebellion in Andor is there's all these different factions. There's all these different elements, and they're not organized at all. And I think that's what it does feel very early because of that.
Yeah.
There is no organization. So you got Saul Guerrero's guys and they're blowing stuff up.
Yep.
And then you've got people over here who are maybe part of the aristocracy, and they're helping out, they're helping out some of the rebellion factions.
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of doing their own thing, doing different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A New Hope, you really see an organized rebellion.
Okay.
So hopefully that wasn't long-winded. You get me talking about Star Wars, and then
no. I mean, it was obviously helpful. I didn't know what was going on, but
just take off there.
To sort of come back for whatever reason, the way it started felt so early because of what I was talking about with your view being closed and it opening up over the course of time. But I did really like that, especially once I saw the whole thing and I could look back and kind of see where we came from.
Sure.
And I also don't know how much it influenced me that I hadn't seen Rogue One. So, and
also,
I do want to say this about your specific question though. Yeah. The four chapters thing. Mm-hmm. There are other shows that are somewhat like this, and none are popping to my head right now, but you have these different acts in different areas and obviously different chapters of a story. I think the only negative part of that, which is probably the case here too, is that sometimes then you can start to favor a certain chapter.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I think they compete. I think they end up competing for popularity or whatever. I think it ends up, I don't know. I don't like dismissing parts of things and sectioning off something that is a complete unit.
Yeah.
And I think I would probably start doing that in my head. Like, well, shoot, I'll just skip to episode 4. If I ever want to rewatch this, skip first 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's something that should be done.
So no, it's not fair. But also I think in this specific case, I would say I don't like chapter 4 as much as I like chapter 3. 2 and 3 are great. Yeah. And 4 is good. It's just not quite as good as 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So it just becomes slightly problematic, but whatever. I mean, I wouldn't shut it off after 3 if I rewatched it.
By the way, Star Wars fanatics, don't at me at my facts. That was off the top of my head, so I'm sure
don't be insecure about it. It's all right.
I'm not insecure. I was generally pretty close. I'm sure I got a couple things wrong though. How do you feel like this show? How do you feel like the writing applies in here? Have we left any room for discussion as far as the writing goes? Is it pretty? I don't know. It feels pretty serviceable. It feels.
Yeah, I think it's probably more than serviceable. I think it's
there's nothing that blows me over, but I feel like there was really, 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 really good as far as the story goes. Some really great scenes, moments, and I don't know. It really hit me the right way in a handful of spots.
Yeah, I agree. I think the story arc is great, and the dialogue is good enough that I didn't notice anything. It took me through the story, which is what it's supposed to do. So,
yeah,
I think, it was, and there's some very creative stuff in there, I think. So, good imagination, and it was a really good Star Wars product, I thought.
Yeah, it takes a lot, I feel like, to create something with such a rich back catalog and have it feel new.
Yeah.
You know, I think it really would be just a terrible undertaking. I mean, ask Rian Johnson or, J.J. Abrams. They've gotten, crucified over their trilogy.
Yep.
I just think it would be a very, very tall task. So there are a few firsts we're dealing with here. This is the first show we've done from Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first piece of Star Wars content we've done.
Okay.
And this is the first sci-fi show we've done.
Yeah, it is. It's the first one you've recommended. Made me watch.
You know what's funny is I don't feel like a super big sci-fi nerd. I don't feel like that. I recognize the fact that I really enjoy it, but
I was thinking the other day, like, Brandon, can you let me laugh sometime? Can I just chuckle? Can I just get a brief chuckle in before you
listen? Every time you recommend a show, I don't feel a bit bad about recommending another sci-fi. Well, I mean, it really has come like you recommend a lot of comedies, which is great because it balances out all of my ultra serious, either spy thriller or sci-fi. I pretty much have two lanes I'm in right now, and it's nice to have someone balancing all of that out. But I'd like to unpack that a little bit. As far as Disney Plus goes, what would be like a barrier for us not getting in there until now? Because it's something that it's definitely a question I've asked. There's been a few things I want to do. What do you feel like the barrier is?
Why haven't we done it?
I don't know, like, if that's my exact question. I'm not saying we made a conscious choice.
Yeah.
It just feels like
we didn't.
Things have led us away from it. And is it really like just a lot of kids content on there?
Yeah. So number one, I don't think we did this on purpose, but number one, I don't think Disney Plus has as wide of an appeal as a lot of the other services because it has more, I would think it has more kids content than other service providers have. So if you don't have any kids, you may not get Disney Plus. Like, why would you get Disney Plus unless you got it as a part of? So if you were a Star Wars fan, a Marvel fan, or had kids, that would be your main reasons right now to get Disney Plus, which are
that checks 3 boxes for me.
Yeah, which is fine, but it also those boxes are Venn diagrammed with each other a little bit with that sort of idea. So if you're not, it's conceivable that you would not be interested in any of that at all, and that's fine. And so you may not be into Disney Plus. Number two, I'm not aware of like a stellar reputation for the original content of Disney Plus, like some of the other ones. Disney Plus certainly ain't no HBO, but
No. And I think it really is. They have a couple pieces of IP that they have the license to. You just named 2 of them.
But they also bought them. They didn't start them.
Oh, yeah.
And so Netflix started Ozark and continued Ozark. Disney bought into Marvel. Disney bought into Star Wars. And then they have all the movies, obviously, but that's almost exclusively kids stuff.
Yeah. And the stuff that's making them all the money are those things.
Which things?
So the things that they bought, the things that they purchased, they're doing so well because they've made good purchases.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point, very good distinction to make.
But what's funny about, I'm not the CEO of Disney. In fact, Disney sometimes doesn't even know who the CEO of Disney is. But anyway, that's just a little Disney dig right there. But they could bring all these things under one umbrella and have a serviceable streaming service like ESPN and ABC, like the things they own, and yet they still section all that stuff off. Yeah. There's you can buy a package that gets you ESPN and Disney Plus, But why isn't ESPN a part of Disney Plus? Like that, they would dominate the streaming services if they charged an extra $3 and included all the ESPN content in Disney Plus.
Well, they kind of do that.
I mean, you have to buy a separate package for ESPN.
But the bundle
Plus
ends up being, say you had Hulu and you had Disney Plus, the bundle is cheaper and you get a third thing. You get ESPN.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've kind of done that a little bit, but I see your point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see your point. And I think we're about to see Warner Brothers. I'm sorry for the, we've kind of sidestepped Star Wars talk, but I've heard that the Warner Brothers HBO Discovery, it's about to become something. I think HBO Max is going away. It's going to be something new.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that at all.
A lot of those, yeah, they're kind of consolidating all of their stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always looked forward to the day where it kind of became one thing again, or at least you could buy $4 instead of, for ones of dollars instead of tens of dollars, you could buy exactly what you want, build your own package of things that you want. But even right now I'm about to take us one step further out of where we were talking, but even right now, like as we know, and I exhaustively have talked about, I watch a lot of soccer, but I can watch Premier League if I buy Peacock. I can't watch the FA Cup on Peacock. I have to buy ESPN Plus to watch we're still in the ridiculous area where even
sports are the single biggest nightmare as far as streaming goes. Okay, back to Rogue One. Back to Andor via Rogue One though. So you said you have not seen Rogue One.
Nope, I have not.
Okay. So it was interesting for me, and this might have been one of the roadblocks. It's interesting for me starting a show where I'm very, and we've had this conversation with Rings of Power, where we know where it's going. Mm-hmm. You know, at least with Rings of Power, there's like thousands of years of, there's so much stuff that could happen, you know. This is a much tighter timeline. Yeah. And there's some scenes of big finality in Rogue One, just to kind of put it vaguely. So I know the ultimate fate of some of these main characters in Andor. And it's interesting for me starting a show that knowing where it's going very soon, you know?
Yeah, sure.
It makes me think like, I don't need this. It makes me think I'm not going to see anything that I don't know here. I think that's a problem. And I think that is also, you know, just kind of to, call back on, Star Wars and Lucasfilm and kind of filling all these gaps in. I think they are kind of creating a little bit too much overlap. Yeah. And it's just, there's not a lot of breathing room for story. So that being said, the kind of the accomplishment of making Andor and telling a story worth being told, I think is commendable. Yeah. Because it's just such a small space that I was like, there's not going to be anything interesting in here. But
here's an interesting thought experiment. There's essentially I don't know if I'm probably not well versed enough in Star Wars to know, but there's essentially one connection basically to the bigger, if you take away Rogue One, you take away Andor, like there's one connection to the broader Star Wars universe, which is that Leia is in it.
Hold on.
Is that a spoiler?
Leia's in Andor?
Is she not? Who's the helper in the jewelry shop?
Oh, not Leia.
Is it Leia's mom? They call her Leia.
This is interesting. Clea.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking.
Her name's Clea?
I think her name's Clea.
And she's not at all associated with Leia?
Yeah.
I hate this show now. No joke. You just flipped me on the show.
Here's my thing. If someone is playing like Leia, if someone's playing Leia other than Carrie Fisher, and now that Carrie Fisher's passed, if it's not, because they've used her likeness in stuff now, I don't feel like they would ever cast another actor as Princess Leia.
Yeah, this says no.
What says no?
The internet.
Says no to what? What's the question?
Is Leia in Andor?
Yeah, she's not.
Man, very frustrating.
That makes you hate the show?
No, I was
Or
joking
was that just
about that.
you just lashing out irrationally?
No, if the person who looks like Leia is named Clea, then I'm very upset. Maybe I don't hate the show, but
see, here's the thing. Here's what Star Wars has over Taylor Sheridan. When someone is
there's nothing to purchase while you watch the show.
you know when someone is a character because they do not reuse actors like he does.
Sure.
So if Leia had been there, it would have been some sort of likeness of Carrie Fisher. But the big through line through all this is Anakin Skywalker.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's any way for you to jump in here, but have you ever started a show or started a movie and, I think my thing is it kind of blunts any potential blows that might be coming. Because certain people,
yeah,
you know that
it works out fine, or it doesn't.
You know that they're going to be fine at the end of this. Yeah. So I think it takes the air out of out of the sails of some potentially heart pounding moments.
Yeah, by and large, I don't like prequels, but just like generally speaking,
yeah,
I don't like hardly any of them. I can't think of any that I really, really enjoy.
I'm sure I could, but I think I mostly agree. I think there is just something about, because I live for those emotional highs, like in movies and television. Yeah. I don't want to know what's coming because I like being surprised. I like twists. I like being, just smacked over the head with some like emotional moments. Yeah. And, everyone, like we know Cassian Andor is in Rogue One, so he's going to be fine in this series. Right. I think about that kind of stuff when I start stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I didn't know that at all. Yeah. I didn't even know that. So I didn't know that. Generally speaking, the star of the show is probably going to be fine, but you're right. I mean, the fact that I didn't know that was helpful in some of the things that he was going through.
Yeah. Does it help a show like this, like Andor, to be backed by such a rich foundation like Star Wars, Lucasfilm?
Well, can we jump into let's add to that question this talk about how I kept hearing how this was not like a Star Wars show. I don't feel like they exploited that, which was fun.
Are you less likely to watch more Star Wars content?
No. I just
okay.
It was a weird coincidence that at least 3 people, including you, basically said it's not like Star Wars.
I want to point out the fact that you weren't convinced about this show until someone else recommended it.
No,
I didn't move the needle much for you.
You weren't
personally.
No, you're the reason I watched it. You weren't the first person to recommend it to me.
When we were planning out the spring, I don't want to get too in the weeds here. When we were planning this out, you were like, well, I'll definitely do Andor now. Someone else recommended it from church.
Oh.
I feel like I'm playing gotcha right now. I
remember the conversation we had before the episode about how you're much more vindictive than I am?
Does it take like a second or a third person that's not?
It certainly helps. It helps you too.
But I'm like dyed in the wool sci-fi and Star Wars. So of course, like I love this stuff. Does it take someone else that maybe isn't as much as I am to recommend it?
Yeah, I don't think that should be offensive to you. It helps.
No, it's not. It is not offensive.
I know it's not, but it helps me as someone who's not dyed in the wool Star Wars to know, I might like this show because you're going to like every single thing they put out. So
yes.
And like,
I'm just curious, like my influence on you and this and kind of what, like me recommending a sci-fi show, like what does that, like what kind of pull do I have? Because it does feel like I ring a lot of the same bells.
Okay, but also like name me some shows that you have recommended that I haven't watched at all.
Well, I feel like I've spent enough time during this podcast trying to think of answers. So I may not spend time on that one. But
my point there is generally I end up coming around and watching whatever it was. And I don't think
moaning and groaning.
No, but
I'm giving you a hard time, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, but there probably is an interesting question behind what we're talking about now, which is basically like, yeah, if I know you love Star Wars and if I know you're obsessed with everything that Star Wars puts out, and I know I'm not obsessed with everything that Star Wars puts out, the more people that tell me, hey, you should check out Andor, the better. But what I find interesting was that people just kept saying, well, it's not like Star Wars. And it was very much like Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know I'm curious what you meant by it's not very Star Wars.
I think,
because I'll come back and say, I love this show. So like,
yeah. I had this whole existential, what is Star Wars to me conversation in my head after I said that to you. Because I think someone kind of called me on it, or at least I heard someone's voice in my head saying, Star Wars isn't the same thing to everyone. Who are you to put handcuffs or kind of box Star Wars in? Seriously, every time I catch myself doing that so often now because I do it with everything. Well, it's not Star Wars to me, and it's just important to point out that Star Wars is huge.
Yeah.
And it isn't always the same. I think what I think about is A New Hope. I think about Han Solo. I think about original Star Wars trilogy. It's fun. There's humor. There's kind of a swagger with Han Solo. It's got so much nostalgia for me. That is what I think of when I think of Star Wars. So to me, Andor is not like the original Star Wars trilogy. I don't think it has to be. I think it can be good. I think Star Wars content can be good without being like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
This is one of those things. It's not like that's just me though. It's not like the original trilogy, and it is really good. They told an interesting story that really diverts from Skywalker saga.
Yes. No, that part of it I get.
So I think big time Star Wars people would say it's not like Star Wars.
Okay.
That would be the only thing.
I mean, it's interesting that you bring up like the original trilogy because I am an original trilogy fan.
Yeah.
And
that is the holy grail.
Sure. And then there's, I somehow the connection is not made for me that because I'm an original trilogy fan, I have to watch and be a fan of everything that ever comes out Star Wars, because basically I haven't liked hardly anything besides the original trilogy, like all that much, but I do love the original trilogy. So that's an interesting point.
I'm an anomaly as far as that goes. Most people don't. Most like the real big Star Wars fans don't like all this other content.
Yeah.
They don't like it.
Yeah.
I pretty much do. I pretty much like stuff. I like more, I watched all those daggone Bourne movies that came out. I just wanted more Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
Anything like that. I like more content.
Yeah.
I like more things to watch. So I don't get grumpy over something that comes out that doesn't feel like Star Wars to me, isn't, that doesn't pull on those heartstrings like the original trilogy does.
Yeah.
I don't get bent out of shape by this stuff. I think it's all still pretty good.
Yep.
But I can kind of see both sides of the coin there. Anyway, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, totally. Yep.
So, does this make you want to watch anything or do an episode on anything any other Star Wars things or Disney Plus things?
I think the quick way to answer that question is no. I would love to watch another season of Andor, though. It doesn't make me any more likely to watch another new thing that came out, but it does make me want to watch another season of Andor.
You think this is an outlier then?
Yeah, but I haven't seen anything else really. I mean, I tried The Mandalorian. I haven't watched, I didn't even watch WandaVision. I know everybody liked WandaVision. I didn't watch that. I didn't watch Hawkeye. I didn't watch...
a lot of the Marvel stuff. I'm not a huge fan of all those things either.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think generally Disney Plus has a lot of swings and misses.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's interesting that we kind of landed on this.
Mm-hmm.
Happenstance is all I have to say. I mean, it really is, even though it's Star Wars and even though I'm a big sci-fi person, it's just not something that I would really bring to the community table here. For some reason, also, I have a thing about things I cherish and things I'm really precious about, kind of putting them on the chopping block. I don't like doing that.
Okay.
I don't want anyone to ruin them for me. Not that Andor specifically is that thing, but Star Wars in general kind of is.
Yeah.
And I don't always like chatting about things that I know has problems. I know, holes can be poked.
No, I get that. Yeah.
So
totally.
I'm glad we were able to do this. I'm glad we found something, and Star Wars content is very near and dear to me. So
I felt very much like that about. I recommended it at one point, but there was a show called Flaked that I really liked by Will Arnett. He's the creator of it, and
I didn't poo-poo on that. Did you? Did I?
No, I don't think you've watched it, but I've never really pushed you to watch it, and I don't want you. I definitely resonate with that because for whatever reason that show hit me exactly right, and I can see the holes in it, and I know, but it was a very good show to me. And so I almost don't want you to watch it because then you'll just be like, it wasn't great. And then it'll hurt a little bit. But I do want to sort of, if we're heading toward an end of this, I do want to sort of point out because I hope that I've come across sort of realistic and very even keel about Star Wars, because I'm not trying to poo-poo this.
No.
And my entire purpose of having this attitude sort of is, I thought Andor was very good. I really enjoyed it. And even in the midst of having watched The Peripheral, because you asked me to, and watched Andor, Andor was a lot better than The Peripheral, I thought. And not only that, but I didn't watch Rogue One. I have not dug into all this Star Wars universe stuff. And still, I think Andor sits on its own. And I think it's a really, you could pick it up. You probably wouldn't even have to know anything about Star Wars necessarily. There's some Star Wars stuff in it in the sense that I thought it was funny one time, this woman goes upstairs in a control room of the Empire, and she just starts pushing these buttons that are not at all labeled, but knows exactly what they do somewhere. And it's just there's some of that Star Wars stuff that's we don't have to explain the technology, and they never do. And that sort of stuff. Yeah. But if you can suspend that disbelief, then, this show stands on its own. And I think probably anyone would enjoy this and could jump into the narrative.
I think that's a great point. This is one of the few Star Wars things that stands on its own. Yeah. It's just kind of hitting me right now. Everything else, really everything else is heavily tied to some other thing.
Yeah, there's honestly not that much nostalgia in this. You have to understand the Empire, but you only have to understand the Empire insofar as it's a totalitarian regime that is exerting way too much control, and so it's an enduring story. It has no,
That's interesting. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, hey man, thanks for chatting about this.
I can't reiterate it enough. I really enjoyed the show. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your kind of your attitude approaching this. It was refreshing. So, thank you.
Well, I'm a sci-fi guy. You know that.
What have you been watching, buddy?
Okay. Well, I'm going to start. We have a similarity in our stuff, so I'm going to start with from the back of my list. I picked up. I think we're headed toward an episode on the White Lotus.
Yes.
I thought maybe it'd be fun. So we are going to do an episode on the White Lotus, but I thought maybe it'd be fun because I've seen 2 episodes at this point, and that's it. I started watching it for the purpose of the episode. I thought it'd be fun to react, to my immediate reaction to White Lotus. And I'm at this point, first of all, at this point, it's not as weird as everybody made it seem.
Okay.
At this point, it's not all that special. At this point, It's fine. I'm not mad about it, but like the way everybody made it seem was like almost like you're going to have to get through it, but it's worth getting through. And at this point, I'm like, it's just a show. Like there's nothing, it's fine. It's fine. So we'll see what happens. But I thought it'd be nice for me to be on record about something I don't know what I'm getting into, sort of. But I'm 2 episodes in.
Yeah.
I mean, how far are you? You've watched some of it, right?
I finished season 1.
Oh, okay.
I think the main thing here is when we first talked about doing an episode on The White Lotus, I was a no.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've stated before, we started throwing around those top 10 lists or whatever.
Uh-huh. Everybody.
Lots of people talked about The White Lotus.
Yeah.
And I feel like...
Yeah, what's her name won several awards.
At what point are we kind of slipping into irrelevance when we don't talk about the most popular shows?
Yep.
And at least give them a try.
Yep.
The White Lotus, it's not my favorite thing, but
it's not going to hurt my feelings to watch the whole thing. I just haven't seen a reason why I need to continue watching, but I'll continue watching because it's interesting. Yeah. But anyway, okay. So I watched that. I actually, at this point, they'll probably be out by the time this episode comes out, but I've done a couple quick hits, so I won't hit them very fast. But I did watch that 90s show. And in case you don't see in case you're not out there on TikTok watching my quick hit.
Listen, I put those puppies everywhere. People are going to see them.
Okay. Well, they'll see them then. That 90s show I watched, and man, I really enjoyed myself. I can't believe it, but I really enjoyed myself. And what I think I said in the quick hit was basically, if you like, you have to like that 70s show because there is some nostalgia in there. But I love that 70s show. And I think that 90s show caught what that 70s show was doing, where I think that 80s show missed it. So it's because they did that 80s show.
When?
I don't know, a while ago. It started out maybe even before that 70s show ended. Glenn Howerton was in that 80s show. Who is from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He was in that show. But
wow.
Anyway, I think that 80s show sort of missed, and that 90s show is on Netflix, and it hits, I think. They have great cameos, really funny stuff. Red and Kitty are in that 90s show. The parents in that 70s show, their grandparents, Eric and Donna's daughter comes and stays with her grandparents for the summer, and that's where that 90s show comes in. But there's cameos by everybody. Every single cameo is perfect, that you remember what their character was like, and they do a really good job. And all the characters of this younger generation fill in a gap that was missing from that 70s show. It's just, I really enjoy it. I couldn't believe I was watching mostly 15 to 17 year olds, but I thought it was really funny. It's just kind of special in that way. It may just be, I'll admit it may have been nostalgia carrying me all the way through, and that's fine, but I really did enjoy that 90s show. Now that I've talked a long time about a quick hit I had, I'm going to also say I watched Coach Prime, and I have a quick hit on that will probably be out by this point or sometime soon. And then you and I both have on our list that we checked out Shrinking. I only checked out 1 episode so far, even though there's 2 released.
I watched both.
Okay. Love it.
I'm locked in, and I want to say,
love it.
Why aren't all comedies like this?
Yeah.
If they were,
okay.
I would be a comedy fan.
Okay. Sure. But it's fragile.
Wait,
it's dealing with heavy stuff.
No, yeah, I know. I want to deal with some stuff.
I do too, but I don't think everyone does. I seriously, when I saw the trailer, they released a trailer like a couple days before the first episode came out, and I was like, this is going to be hard. It's like going to be funny, but it's also going to be very hard. It's dealing same as Ted Lasso is, but
that's what I was going to say. I feel like Ted Lasso deals with some heavy stuff.
It's all the same people. That's why it's the same stuff.
I'm saying though, does that come across as a show that like is dealing with heavy stuff, or does it come across as a good time?
Well, they trick you into dealing with it because Roy Kent says the F word a lot. So
I just think there's a way.
Yeah.
What did we say? There's a way to kind of get you to eat your vegetables.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like this. This is how you do it. This is the way.
No, I agree, but you're acting like everyone in the world could do this. I couldn't do it.
I'm acting like
I could write that 90s show. I could not write.
I feel vindicated when I get a little grumpy about Parks and Rec or something that is just a laugh a minute. I feel vindicated about those kind of things. When I don't feel crazy. I don't feel crazy there because sitcoms exist that I like. It would be different if I just didn't like any of them.
You think Shrinking is a sitcom?
It's funny because you did the same thing with Ted Lasso, and I'm like, yeah, it's a sitcom, and you're like, are you sure? It doesn't feel like a sitcom.
Huh. I mean,
it's maybe like a longer length comedy. It's definitely a comedy.
Oh no, yeah, it's definitely a comedy. I'm not saying
I'm using that sitcom. I'm using that term loosely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way that I think about sitcoms is like not interrelated. So that's a big deal for Ted Lasso and Shrinking. Like the story progresses over the course of the show. I think that is
a specific type of sitcom.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's just it's a matter of language at that point, but
we're splitting hairs. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yes, I would consider this in the sitcom realm, but I could easily just use the word comedy every time I said sitcom. Yeah. I like comedies with heart, and I want to deal with some stuff and I think it goes down so much easier, and it's so much more potent when it's presented with levity. And
I agree with all of that.
Man, it's great.
Yeah.
Watch Shrinking
it is really
right
good.
now.
Yeah. Really, really good.
I also checked out The Accused, which is just called Accused. Sorry. No, the first piece of network content I think I've consumed in a decade.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe.
What channel?
It's on Fox. Okay. And it is a remake of a British show, and every episode is a new cast, a new story. I think it's good enough to keep watching and maybe make my mind up eventually. Mm-hmm. The first episode was like, whoa, that is how that puppy ends. So I don't know. Maybe they're all going to be, maybe they're just going to all sit a little bit sideways when I watch them, but it was well acted, pretty intense. I was impressed with Fox. I'll say that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyway, big name, big cast, but a lot of really big names that they've gotten for the show. I checked out. I love Cesar Millan. You like Cesar Millan?
I did. Yeah, I used to. I mean, I haven't seen anything he's done in a long time. But.
So I was a big fan of Dog Whisperer, and I'm kind of in the process of like talking my wife into getting a dog, and we're him hauling around, and I always like to beef up on my Dog Whisperer when I am in that mood. So he's got a new show called Better Human, Better Dog, and it's on National Geographic, which is a part of Disney Plus now. Okay. It's very similar to Dog Whisperer. Sure. I think it's pretty good. I'm current on The Last of Us. I'm current on Mayor of Kingstown. Mayor of Kingstown falls in a strange zone for me. I have your voice. I have your voice ringing in my head. I think my thing is we watch stuff that we watched The Wire, like we watch stuff with really rough content in it. And I'm wondering why this feels different. It does. I agree that it does feel different, but I'm wondering why.
Because I can't quite
put my finger on it.
My quick answer to that is The Wire is not actually sensational, and I think Mayor of Kingstown can tend to be sensational. Throw in nonsensical, like really gross stuff. Gross in many different ways, but gross stuff for shock value.
I think we're coming out of that a little bit.
Okay.
It does feel like we're making good progress as far as that goes.
Cool.
Less sensational. Season 2. The Last of Us is some of the best television I've ever seen.
I'm okay.
Terrifying, but so good.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
The funny thing is I believe you, and I just don't want to watch a terrifying show for what. So that's not fair, I guess.
So The Last of Us is a video game that has won awards on awards on awards on awards, mainly because of the story. It is just an insane story. And so when HBO did this, because I knew I couldn't play the game. I knew that it was going to be enough like disturbing that I wouldn't be able to play the game. The games become much more real. It's like I'm an extension. The player is an extension of me, and I can't do that. But I knew I've always been interested in the story. And when I saw HBO was going to do it, I got super excited because I want to know the story. And have not been let down yet. It's Pedro Pascal is he's just a heavy hitter now. There's no other way to put it. He is fantastic.
That's awesome.
So anyway, that's me.
You talk about that and I'm just like, have no desire to check it out because of you always say it's terrifying. I just don't. I'm going to put my foot down on this one. You have to. All right.
Yeah, and then you pick one that I would never say yes to, and I'll do that one.
All right.
You're going to get me good. We're going to do the Black Flag or whatever it's called.
Hold on. That's on everybody's list of great shows. Our Flag Means Death. It's great. It's hilarious.
You're in the zeitgeist as far as that stuff. I am not. I have, whatever reason, I have lost touch with reality as far as
it was on all those lists of
what
good
the people
shows.
are watching. Cause I don't
know what people are watching. I know what's on the list.
Every time I see one of those lists, all the shows you recommended are on there. And I'm like, how is that possible?
Because
the rehearsal was everyone's favorite show from last year.
Show, yeah.
I'm always so shocked.
Everybody
about that.
always knows that the critics are like randomly picking shows that nobody's seen.
Oh, man.
But still, Our Flag Means Death is so funny. It's really funny.
I believe you.
That does it for this episode of Good Show. Good Show is created, recorded, edited, and produced by Anthony Mako and Brandon Sharp. Our theme music was written and recorded by me, Anthony, and all our graphics and socials are developed by Brandon. If you've enjoyed your time with us, please make sure to like or follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you appreciate our show, please throw us a rating and a review there too. If you'd like to discuss any of our content, you can search the Good Show Facebook group or follow us on Instagram at The Good Show Podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.